An article from Fortune magazine: stealth workers lying to their bosses about where they work is costing companies tons of money. And there's a valid point made in this article, but the framing once again is atrocious. We'll just take a look at the article. Some remote workers are playing hooky from their company's home base these days, and bosses are catching on. The pandemic challenged the idea that office was an important fixture of the workplace, as people working from home were found to be just as productive. So the idea was challenged, and they were just as productive. However, they're playing hooky, and their bosses are catching on. So I'm not sure what's going on there. And enter what Bloomberg deems stealth workers, employees willing to go the extra mile to hide the fact that they're living more than an extra mile from their company's headquarters. These workers continuously bop around to more affordable locations using VPNs to hide that they're working abroad, logging in early to disguise their actual time zone, and hiding their home address. Some digital nomads will even wear sweaters to make it look like they're braving the cold. So here's maybe the legitimate point. The great length it takes to keep working remotely on their terms sounds like a dedicated hassle to the worker, but is proving to be an even bigger problem for the employer. Terrible, 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 terrible framing. While companies were more lax about their employees working under the palm trees of Tulum or the increasingly crowded groves in Greece during the days of the pandemic, the reality of being subjected to legal liability, cybersecurity concerns, and taxes and fees if an employee is located in a state or country where the business isn't registered is becoming more real. So I'm going to talk to Peter about this in today's Not So Critical Update. Definitely have some thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. Before we start, I just want to say, if anybody is liking these videos, or if you like this video, then hit the subscribe button. It helps us out and makes us feel good. So yeah, thanks. So, oh my God. Yeah, this just annoys me from the beginning about how it's, like you say, the framing. Making out employers to be bad people because they're trying to work from other places. Like, if they're doing their job and they're producing results, and they're not costing the company money, then why is it a problem? And actually, in a lot of the places they mentioned, like Portugal and Greece, the income tax liability is way less than the US. Like, depending on where you are in the US. Yeah. You know, in Portugal, it's 20% income tax.
Well,
flat. That's it.
So that goes to kind of the legitimate issue here, is that corporations have to follow the tax laws of the places where their employees are working. So if I have an employee who tells me that they're living in Silicon Valley, then I have to pay taxes to California and follow California employment regulations and follow those rules. And if that employee actually is living in Portugal, then that creates a legitimate business problem. However, this article is simultaneously saying there's no reason for them to be in Silicon Valley. It's cheaper for them not to be in Silicon Valley. They're more productive if they're not in the office. But this is actually a huge problem for the corporations, and the corporations really need to get control of this because these employees are somehow taking advantage by providing all these additional benefits.
Yeah, I know. It's so frustrating. It makes you question the rest of it as well. It makes me question the rest of the article because, first of all, if there was one example there where some employee cost like $30,000 in tax liability or something like that. If that happens at a company, surely you would just get fired, right? Immediately. Like, if you cost your company 30 grand because you lied to them about where you are, I would totally get fired for that. So,
I mean, that's kind of the point of the article, is that employees are doing this, and that's the injury to the corporations.
Well, they're having to fire otherwise very productive employees because they cost a lot more.
Because they're lying about not working from where they say they're working from.
Okay.
So like, that is a legitimate problem. That's why I'm like, there is a legitimate aspect to this, but they're looking at it entirely the wrong way. So there's two parts. One is the employee's more productive. They're happier. It's cheap, lower cost of living, all these things. So that's it. They're more productive. Huge win, both for the employee and for the corporation. One downside is the corporations have to follow the rules of the place where the employee says they work, even though we maybe find out that they're not actually working there. Creates legal liability, tax liability, all kinds of problems for the corporation. But the other issue that's not mentioned here at all, though, is that if I say I'm working from Silicon Valley, they're going to pay me a lot more money than if I say I'm working from Portugal. Even though I'm the same person doing the same work, the value to them is the same.
Yeah, exactly. The value to
the real problem here.
Yeah, it just because they should be paid the same wherever they live, and it should be market rates. And I think maybe that's something that's changing a bit. Like, I know that some companies do pay depending on location, like Meta famously does. But they, like you say, the same value to the company. They're not producing less. They're not working less. They're probably working more because they're in a place where they want to be. So it seems dumb to me, totally dumb.
So do you think, living in Silicon Valley, living in New York City, living in LA, where there's an incredibly high cost of living, is not a reason to pay somebody more money?
Well, I mean, it might be controversial, but I think they should get paid enough to live, and the people who don't live in Silicon Valley should get the same amount and get paid, just be able to save more, have a better life. It shouldn't be that the people in Silicon Valley have a shitty life, but it should be kind of like, well, I've chosen to live in a massive metropolitan area where the cost of living is higher. That's my choice. I have chosen to live there, and it costs me more. But the market rate should just be, that's what I think anyway.
Yeah, it's a tough issue. I think maybe relevant factor could be if they have to work from an office. Like, do I have to live in Silicon Valley to work for you? Or could I have the choice to work anywhere? Then if I choose to live in Silicon Valley, that's my choice. But
100%. I think that's like working night shift. You get paid more for the graveyard shift because it's uncomfortable hours for most people. It's an inconvenience. So if you're forced to work, if you have to be in a meeting in an office somewhere, then the company should compensate you for that. Especially if you don't want to.
Yeah. I feel a little torn on it. It's a tough issue. I'd be really curious to hear sometimes we get people commenting on the videos that like they're in some situation and here's something to think about. I would love it if people in the tech industry, maybe living in some of these higher cost of living areas, or people who are doing this geographic arbitrage to take advantage of a lower cost of living, like let us know in the comments. Like I'm seriously interested in those kind of perspectives.
I think the solution that I've seen most often is that if you're in an area that's outside of the standard places that the company is able to pay you, then you have to create a company for yourself. And working as a sole trader, or like it's called a sole trader in the UK, but like I think just a limited company with one employee, it's not that difficult, and you can get companies that will basically do everything for you. There's umbrella companies. There's a lot of different solutions for this kind of thing. So maybe the company could say, you can work where you like, but just tell us where it is and we'll figure it out. I know at scale, it becomes more difficult, but then at scale, you can get agencies to do all this shit. So
that's a much bigger deal for a company to manage than you're making it sound.
Well, then ask the employee to do it themselves and just invoice the company.
But then they're not an employee. Option? Then they're a contractor, and they're not getting benefits. You're not, guaranteed time. Like there's different factors. Then the liability changes. The employee's got to have their own liability insurance. There aren't as many corporate protections.
Yeah. Okay, tricky.
Then at least give it to them as an option. Answer.
If you want to work somewhere else and it's difficult for us to do it, we have to come to a different arrangement. I don't know. I suppose it depends on how much the company cares about their employees, right? They do all sorts of other perks and benefits and shit like that. Then get this sorted out as well.
And I guess essentially that kind of is what I'm arguing for. Is the story's written as
Oh, God, the
Somehow
stories.
these employees taking
Terrible.
advantage of geographic arbitrage are
Who's it
stealing from the company
Forbes?
and creating problems for the company. But the reality is the company's benefiting even still. If both sides would just acknowledge the situation, let people work from wherever the fuck they want to work from, then everybody's happy. It's not about
Yeah.
employees are lying and we caught them because they're doing the thing that makes them the happiest, most productive, and earns them the most money.
Yeah. I would hate to have to be one of those employees that actually felt like, having to wear a warm jumper to pretend I'm in a cold area. Just, I don't know, that level of lying is not good, not a healthy environment, I think.
So what about companies that do require the employees to work on site? You and I obviously enjoy working from home, but there are a lot of people who, even in tech, who, even could work from home, but the company doesn't allow it. Should the company be required, or should it be expected that a company pay more for the requirement of being in the office instead of working from wherever you want?
They should pay a living wage, right? Like enough to that's I think if you require someone to be in the office for some reason, then I think they should get some kind of compensation.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think there should be a premium for working in the office, because now I've got to commute, I've got to maintain and gas my car, I've got to buy different clothes, I've got to arrange my schedule around all this nonsense.
But I can see how that would be taken the other way around, right? So if companies did offer that, then the people who work remotely would be like, why am I getting paid less? I'm doing the same amount of work. I'm working more hours because I get started earlier in the morning or something like that. But I think those people would be, perhaps you could present them a good argument to say, well, these people have to commute and take more time, get up earlier and all that kind of stuff. That's why they're getting paid. Yeah, absolutely.
That feels like a good solution.
Yeah.
So let us work from anywhere. That's a win-win. And if we have to live or be in an office someplace, pay us for that.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm good with that.
Problem solved.
Who's the article from? Sorry, I know we're going
Fortune magazine.
Fortune. All right. That sucks. Well, that doesn't surprise me then if it's Fortune.
No. Any of these finance magazines, business journals, they're all going to have this same pro-corporate, anti-labor framing.
Yeah. Especially one called literally
called Fortune.
Right. Yeah.
All right. See y'all tomorrow.